you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
This is Voss here from ChrisVoss.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The Iron Ladies things that makes it official. Welcome to 16 years. Nearly 3,000 episodes of the Chris Voss Show. We bring in all the most amazing minds, the most amazing stories, and one of the oldest living podcasts. I think we're one of the oldest that's still active of a handful of original podcasts that we've been just doing this since time and all. So help support the show, because my back is tired and my knees are broken and I'm old. So we need all the help we can get to keep the juice going on the Chris Voss Show and keep us funded in coffee. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and what is it? Facebook.com/Chris Voss. You can find us all over the interwebs on the sky. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. We have an amazing young man today. We're going to be talking about his insightful book and, of course, some of the work that he does in helping people. We're going to dig into some AI. For those of you who are hot on the AI topics, it's kind of a thing right now, I hear. The kids are talking about it. He's the author of the latest book to come out, Real World Sales Strategies, The Art of Selling Conversation, by Thorsvig and James Hayden. Today we're going to be joined by James, and he's going to give us the lowdown on all the deets, and we're going to learn so much from him. We're not even going to know what to do. We're going to be so smart at the end of the show. James is a veteran GTM strategist, fractional CRO, an advisor who spent more than 38 years helping B2B companies open new markets, fix stalled sales engines, and build revenue growth that lasts. Across his career, he's generated more than $1 billion in revenue, worked with more than 140 companies across 4 continents. He's the author of the aforementioned book and is going to bring practical, real-world view on how growth actually happens through trust, clarity, timing, and better conversations. He's also a serious student of negotiations. This is a conversation about influence, leadership, reinvention. I'm fighting a cold here, and what it really takes to create the momentum when the road ahead is all but obvious. Welcome to the show. How are you, James?
Hey, good to be here, Chris. Are we going to split the difference today?
That's the original. I'm the original Chris Voss. That's the guy who hijacked my brand in 2016, 8 years into me building it. He had no followers, and I had all of them, and he just hijacked my brand.
That guy, huh?
Yeah, there's lots of stories. Anyway, James, let's get into it with you. Give us .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
I have a website. It is James B. Hayden, HAYDEN.com.
So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside this book?
Quick story about how I put together the book. I've been involved with companies. I could come in and get the sales engine cranked back up, turn around the sales teams, really roll up my sleeves and work with organizations on how to build markets. And I stumbled onto a sales methodology that some people know about, but it was just purely by trial and error incident. It took me about 17 years of my career to stumble on it. And through another good friend, former client, I found that there was a sales methodology actually that was in line with what I had learned. I met Thorsvig. He had his own business. Originally, he was with Sandler Sales Training, which is, I think, a great sales training organization. And from there, I'd bring him in when I was doing turnarounds with companies, building companies up, that kind of thing. And he wanted to write a book to capture the IP of his business and was having difficulty getting it done. He said, look, I need a type A and somebody who's a practitioner who really can tell some of the sales stories that are in line with the sales methodology. Long-winded story. It took about Took us about 4.5 years to write it. We published the first one in 2013. And then I republished in 2023. Hal passed, unfortunately.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Great guy. Republished in 2023. I'd been doing quite a bit of work with the New Zealand government on their emerging companies that are launching globally. And one of the CEOs called me out and said, look, dude, we're not picking up the phone all the time and doing cold calls like it talks about in your book. We've got a couple big things have changed in the world. One is people are using digital technology more and more and more, and you're working with us to revise our sales approach based on all this cool technology and starting to incorporate AI into enabling our organization to sell more effectively, move things through the pipeline faster. There's none of that in your book. The other thing that changed dramatically, Chris, was the selling through partners. So in 2013, when we originally published the book, about 30% of revenue was through partners, channel partners, so resellers, that type of thing. And Forrester reported in 2023 that it just flipped. So you take big companies, like the Microsofts and other organizations, a big part of their business, 70% of the business of many of those companies comes through partners. So developing the right channels, recruiting, selecting, onboarding, and then optimizing them once they're a partner, or divorcing if they're not getting the job done is a key part of what we did. And so I built a criteria around that for a lot of my clients. Wasn't in the book. So like I said, the world had changed so much from 13 to 23.
Yeah.
It needed to be done. So republished it. And even now, what's happening in the AI world is dramatic. It's dramatic, the amount of information. And if there's a message for listeners, I would say, because a lot of salespeople, a lot of sales teams come to me and say, is AI going to replace me? I think it's a good question. People should be taking a look at how to improve and how to level up their skills. And I would say emphatically no. And the people that will be most successful, however, will be AI-enabled salespeople and revenue generators. So that's the difference. It's letting AI be your servant.
Yeah.
Is where it is. And I think learning how to put together the right kind of prompts, but it's frigging amazing what it can do. My entire website was really redesigned and republished, and the integration with social media, AI did the whole thing. I didn't
really. This JamesBHayden.com I've got up here. Wow.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I one of my friends to help design the iPhone, and he has been blown away with Claude and some of these other AI, coders. And I mean, this guy knows code. He developed the iPhone with Steve Jobs. And this thing is great. My other friend was a big internal VC for Amazon, and he would fund, and choose where Amazon cloud services would invest, and they try and do different things to get people to, use their cloud, and they would seed them a little bit. And so he's probably invested in, I don't know, hundreds of startups with his own money and with that, and some of the stuff he's done in Silicon Valley. And he's just sitting around right now just going, the code that's on Claude and these other things, it's top notch. It's not, I think one of them said the coding on something they wanted turned out better than what they would have done personally.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I was just like, wow. Now, so let me ask you this: if AI is AI going to drive it so that human connection, human conversation, human talking to a human is just going to become more premium than ever before?
Absolutely. I mean, Chris, it's a really good question, and you hit the nail on the head. There was one of the things when I first came out of school, Megatrends, book by John Nesbitt. What he talked about was, and he's a futurist. You have to go, hopefully the odds are better than Las Vegas, but he had some really good views to the future. One of the things he said is, as technology increases, that velocity increases, we're going to have more need for human touch, human interaction. Yeah. So he called it high tech, high touch. You probably heard the term before. And that really stuck with me. But, one of the things, if you look at COVID, what happened during that time is so many people had to shelter in. We hit a pretty significant mental health issue because people were so isolated.
That's the understatement of the I don't know, the eons of human.
Yeah,
we all need therapy after that thing.
I can make some great bread though, and probably drink too many gin and tonics.
We had a lot of people write books that came on the show. It was like the best thing for our show. We had like all these people wrote books, and I almost kind of want one back, but now there's that Hanovirus in the 2026 in the ocean. Those of you watching it for 10 years from now, living in the apocalypse. Yeah, it started now. It started with this episode.
Here we go. Heard first on Chris's show.
Yeah, I just heard that there's someone loose in the EU now that has it that flown on a plane with the people on the boat. So now it's loose in the EU. Yeah, I'm going to go buy some masks today. And I will. Jokes aside, though, I grew up in the day, and you may have grown up in that sort of era too. Man, when you did sales calls, I would work for, I think when I was younger, I worked for a company called Car Company, and you'd have to lug these giant catalogs and all this gear, and you had demo gear and crap, and a lot of it was for trucking companies. It was for their maintenance department, welding rods, bolts, nuts, all that sort of stuff that you need. And I remember, some of the big companies, man, you had to have charm and a bunch of free crap and everything to get past that. What do they call the old secretaries that they kept you from getting to the buyer?
Oh, gatekeepers.
Gatekeepers, yeah. Wow. You had to, and I remember waiting for 2 hours in the office. Oh, he might be with you, but I don't know. And you're just like, I drove 60 miles for this. And now, I still call people because I come from that era. And to me, I don't think anything of it. Yeah. And nowadays, you get buyers on the phone, and they're kind of, hey man, you're the only person who called today. How's it going? Hey, what's the world like out there? That sort of shit. And it just made interactions more valuable. And I kind of excel at that because so many people now are like stranger danger. Oh, the phone ring. Oh, whatever. So I might have to talk to someone. But if you can hold a conversation like you talked about, you can make a difference.
The first 30 seconds. And another thing I've found to be true, and I really emphasize this with the sales teams I've worked with, texting. The amount of information, Chris, you were talking about really how we both started out our careers, and it was dialing for dollars. I mean, and it's okay. I made 200 calls today and I talked to one person and I had a great day, right? Yeah. Getting to that person and making an impact was really quite an experience, quite a learning experience. Yeah. Today, the approach is different. As you mentioned, calling is still super, super effective. However, there are so many other ways to get a hold of people. Yeah. I worked with a company called ZipWhip that was acquired by Twilio about 4 years ago for about $850 million. Huh. I worked with them on setting up their first vertical markets. And one of the things I learned with them, because they were very SMS and text focused, is if you look at a way to reach people, an email, a great email, you get around 20% open rate. Text messages, if you can get somebody's mobile number, 95% open rate within 5 minutes.
Yeah, because you got to at least look at it, decide if you want to respond or delete it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So one of the teams we were working with, I was kind of modeling the behavior the salespeople needed to get meetings and that. And so we sent a text, because you can get that information through some of the big sales intelligence systems like ZoomInfo, Apollo, and that information you can connect with anybody. Yeah. And so the information's there. And so we sent a text out to a executive, and basically got a text back like, how the hell did you get my number? And, why are you texting me? And so I just picked up the phone and I called him and said, here's why we did it. It's the most effective way to get a hold of you. Wouldn't you want your salespeople to be doing the same thing, communicating, through the most effective media? Ended up getting a proposal. The last I heard was we got a proof of concept in that company to go, but it's it's kind of flipping it around on them, and it's super effective if you can use it. I highly recommend that. That is the standard and the most effective communication. Use it with other things, balance it out. I still email campaigns are good, and picking up the phone, and a lot of people still have office phones and home phones, and that is also a great way to go. Just that initial conversation where what you were talking about earlier, so many things, especially if you have a high trust product or solution, there are many buying influences within an organization. It's usually not just one person, it's a complex sale. And 90% of human communication is nonverbal. Or, are you getting that? I can't tell how bad your cold is or anything right here. But if we're in the same studio, I'd have an idea.
You get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
And so a lot of that is you can't pick up on the screen. You really can't pick up through that communication. And I think it's to the point where people still want to do business with, especially if it's a critical sale and opportunity, with somebody they know, somebody they trust. And really the only way to do that is face-to-face. So that face-to-face communication, especially in many services and products, is critical, and AI will not replace that. However, AI will give you a tremendous amount of information, a lot of contact with that person, and qualify the sale and find out the specifics of what they're looking for before you have an initial contact, which I think is really cool. My analogy with sales teams is, if you have the right CRM system, reporting system, and you have a good sales intelligence system, you've got a Ferrari in your garage. You just need to take it out for a spin around the block sometimes. And that's the issue, is getting people to use it, because it is relatively new technology. But Chris, from what you described in my career, if I'd had that information, holy moly, it would be amazing. I look at it and I'm blown away. Completely different world.
I would have killed to have that back in the day, because you look for things about the person to gain rapport, and I think this ties in with the setup question that I had for you. You talk about the book about how sales calls go from pitches to conversations. One of the things, and I don't know if this is how you tie this into the book, but one of the problems that I have is, I was raised in the world where you were, probably with some great sales trainers, and they always taught gain rapport. When I go into an office, I'm looking at your pictures, I'm looking at what's on your desk. Maybe you got, I don't know, you're a gun collector, you got a cool gun collection, or you got a bowling ball, or I'm looking for things that I could be like, oh, hey, Mike, how you doing? Thanks for taking the time to meet me. Oh, are you into hockey? You got your hockey sticks over there. Oh, yeah. You get to know people. And the thing I hate about sales these days, at least for the most part, like LinkedIn and shit, is they don't even, hold your hand, take you to dinner, give you a kiss. They just, boom, they just go right, here's the pitch. And you're like, who the hell are you? So is that kind of what you talk about in the book when it comes to, instead of pitching, have a conversation?
Have a conversation, and it's really, we talk about some things in the book, emotional reasons for buying. Everybody has an emotional reason for buying. And two biggest motivators in the world, love and fear, right? And love could, I don't mean it that you're going to fall in love with your client, although, you can, that can happen.
If she's hot, or he's hot, whatever your thing is. I don't mean
exactly. But it's really, love would be getting a promotion. Yeah. I had a client also in the trucking industry, and we put together initiatives and programs to increase their sales. And I got to the point where I knew the client well enough to where, when we were doing the planning every year, I'd bring some food into their house. His wife would sit down. We'd talk about designing a trip for the top achievers in the company, where they'd go to trips to Hawaii, we had trips to Spain and a few other places. But what he got comfortable enough where he would sit down and show me, if we get this kind of an increase, his bonus is going to be this. If we got Y increase, it's going to be double that. So it gets to the point, that's an emotional reason for buying. He's getting more money. He's being a better provider for his family. all of those things that go with it. And it's really uncovering that, and uncovering those emotional reasons for buying isn't something you can find out through AI or social media necessarily. You can get a few indicators and a few clues, like you talked about. The ritual bonding we do to establish rapport with people up front is whether there's that bowling ball or fishing rods or guns or whatever in their office, shows what their interests are, and that establishes that. The danger in some of the ritual bonding that I've learned and we wrote about was ritual bonding in Hawaii, in the U.S., for example, versus New York. I've had a couple situations where doing business in Hawaii, they want to establish ohana, or this family sense, and if you talk business in the first 2 meetings, you're out the door. They really want to establish that kind of rapport. Wow. I remember one of the first meetings I had in Manhattan with an SVP at a big brokerage company. She had on her desk, she had an egg timer. And so I was, I'm looking around her office for clues and establishing rapport. She flips over the egg timer and she said, "Go. When this egg timer goes down, you're out." So
it's like Wizard of Oz. When the sand enters, this is the thing.
So it's I think it's different. It's different in different organizations, but culturally across the U.S., we have so many different cultures that you need to be aware of that as well.
Yeah, definitely. One of my secret hacks. And it does help that I have this voice. I got the Barry White voice, baby. And it does help that I'm a big mouth. When you've been a CEO all your life since 18, and you're always selling everybody. Everybody, the employees, the owners, or not the owners, the board members, the investors. You're always constantly selling. And so I never shut up. Pretty much. I think even in my sleep I'm talking, evidently. But my dogs try and muffle me. They just put a pillow over my face. But one of my tricks is and this is not only for business but for dating. I'm single and dating, and I have a huge 5,000 member dating group that I oversee as well. For meetup groups, we do old world dating where you meet up at a bunch of people meet up at a bar and meet in person before.
It's really useful.
Yeah, it's really cool. But one of the things I found is so many people are texting, right? And there's so many ways that you can say something wrong in texting that you don't really mean, but since they can't hear your inflection, they're like, was that a joke, or did he just insult me, right? And so it can be dangerous, especially if you're dating, because somebody can take the wrong thing and think you're saying something else, and then you're blocked. My trick is I use LinkedIn and Facebook Messenger's voice modules, or whatever you want to call them, the voice things. So when people message me, or I'm talking or pitching or something like that, if I need to deepen what we're doing, is I'll go on voice. And with the dating on Facebook Messenger, I'll always use my voice. I'll be like, Hey, baby, it's Chris Voss here coming at you live. And I've had women tell me, they're like, your voice is just so amazing. And they sense the leadership, masculine thing in there. And I think in business, they sense the leadership too, because they're kind of like, this guy's a bossy bitch. He must have been a CEO all his life. But they can tell, and it comes across, and it builds rapport. And then pretty soon they're talking back to me, not on text, but we're actually having this conversation like we would have in person. But, they might be in Africa or Australia, and you can build that rapport. And I get so many dates, and all the guys are just like, how do you get all these dates, Chris? And I'm like, I don't text, man. I talk. I use my voice. And it's the same with business. If somebody's talking to you on LinkedIn, I think there's lots of other places where you can use voice now. But if you can use that voice module on stuff, or pick up the phone. Hey, let me give you a call. I'm going to pick up the phone and call you right now. And have a conversation with people, and just not hit them with the pitch, but hey, how's it going, dude? How's your day? How's your day today? And really, people, I seem to have something in my voice that people sense that I care and give a shit about them, that I'm genuinely interested in them. And I hope I do, because I am. I find people very interesting. Some people. Yeah,
it's important that comes across.
Yeah. Not the people on Twitter so much, but pretty much everywhere else. Twitter callback joke. So there's a That is such a tool for me, dude, between money and dates, just that human conversation. And I think that's always going to be an edge, hopefully, for me.
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of teams use voice, but I've got one in mind. That's a good hack.
Is there an AI system that you're using to create these dossiers? Like is a particular product or thing, or maybe we need to make one.
One thing is AI doesn't always tell the truth.
But
then again, people don't either.
That's true. Yeah.
So what I do, depending on the research I'm doing and that kind of thing, I'll use a few different platforms of AI. And so I'll take an output from AI, for example, and I'll flip it into another AI and say, hey, analyze this, tell me what you think. Are there any inaccuracies, or could this be improved? And it's a good way to check one another of the different platforms, but they can do amazing things. So I'll tell you what I see in the world. The techies are using Claude. That's the big, really one of the big dogs right now. As far as the technology community, Chat GPT is massive. It does a great job in terms of graphics, and if you want to design like that, it'll go and it'll do things. It'll flip things that like Canva, which is another app. It'll do all of that. So it'll do graphic design for you. It'll do more. I'd say that's more, consumer focused. One that's really, really deep in terms of research that I like a lot is called Perplexity.
Perplexity? What?
Yeah.
That's the name of the app.
Pardon me?
That's the name of that. Perplexity.
Perplexity.
Okay. Yep. Perplexity AI. There's so many AI companies. I can't keep track of it all anymore.
It's changing. Yeah. I mean, the vision of Sam Friedman, ChatGPT, is he really believes that there will be $1 billion company and there'll be 3 people in it, and the rest will be agentic AI or agents and that kind of thing. There's the investment, the capital in our economy is really going into AI, and some of the layoffs that are going on in the technology community, I think are kind of bullshit. They go through, tech companies overhire and then they pull back and do that again. But do
you think that maybe they're going to end up hiring a lot of people back? I think sometimes they're finding that they went too far because somebody has to engineer the things or prompt them.
They do. Yeah. And keep an eye on it. The quality assurance work and that kind of thing, and just the human interaction. AI, it can be friendly, but you wouldn't want to go out on a date with it.
Yeah, and it can hallucinate. So watch out, folks. And it's done some interesting things too that people are concerned about. So let's get into some of the offerings that you do on your website here. Tell us about some of you help people with AI-driven sales strategy on your website. We've talked about that. Give us a rundown on some of the services you have here that I see that were built by AI.
Most of my services are pretty hands. I typically get involved with either new startups, emerging companies, when they're scratching their head, the CEOs, I thought I was a great salesperson, I can't figure out how to build this market, right? And or they have the wrong sales team in place. Or they're a bit more mature, say they're at 15 million, they want to get to 50 million, or they're at 20 million, they want to get to 100 million. How do they get there? So there are 2 different sets of things. One is, keeping that nimble approach in a startup or an emerging company. How do you build that? I roll up my sleeves. I go on sales calls and really have conversations with the customers, work with the product team to make sure they've got the right product in place. And then in any of those scenarios, what I'm looking for is repeatable processes that generate revenue, and an approach that is, this may sound scientific, and it is somewhat, in any market where you've got a new product or a new solution, we are herd animals as humans. And so finding those early adopters and innovators, and the language you have in targeting those people is going to be, or those companies, is going to be different than the entire market. But it's a couple of key studies have come out. The tipping point was one that pointed to the same thing as the chasm crosser, or crossing the chasm. And it's a handle I use is Chasm Crosser by Jeffrey Moore. Wrote that book. Oh. They're great books, because what they pointed out, and it's been scientifically proven now, that getting those people that are the early adopters and innovators, other companies and people follow. It's the reason you see product placement in movies. Brad Pitt drinking a Coors or a Pepsi Light is, hey, I'm gonna drink that because I want to be like Brad Pitt. It is the way it works. But the messaging and the approach is different as you go up that what we call a product adoption life cycle, where early adopters and innovators, and you're going to spend the most money in terms of your cost of acquisition of a client to them, but you're not going to get to that big market until you start driving that demand that, hey, I've got to have this product, I've got to have this solution, that kind of thing. And it may not even be the best product in the market, but it's where you start to see that liftoff of adoption in the marketplace. So anyway, that's working with companies and setting that up right. And it's really, if I could put it in simple terms, it's, are we getting the right message to the right goal at the right time?
Now, and I didn't mean it for your services were AI, just your website was built AI. Sorry about that.
It is.
I'm still sick. I'm on the end of it, I guess. My brain will start functioning one of these days. Now, one of the other questions I had for you is, who's your ideal client? We go out on LinkedIn, of course, and stuff, and probably be on the LinkedIn newsletter. Who's out there, and how do they identify if they're right to work with you?
Usually CEOs and founders and the C-level team. I've been brought in by venture capitalists and people in the private equity space that know what I do. The great news probably for everybody is I don't stick around.
Oh, they probably like you. But yeah, that's what we have a lot of fractional CFOs and fractional this, that, and the others on. That's become a real thing. I remember when I first heard it, I was like, fractional? What does that mean? Like you're 1/10 the size of a normal person or something?
I can tell you that.
Maybe that's what we should start calling those folks that are, that are a little bit shorter than most humans. We could call them fractional humans. I don't think they're going to appreciate that. They're wonderful people. But so you do that. And so do they need to have a certain amount of sales, net worth, the value of company, or mid-size, medium, large?
It's generally the startup companies, what I would call emerging companies, kind of that next level, or if they're stuck getting from one level to the next. I mean, I've worked with 3 companies that are huge companies: Microsoft, Oracle, and a company that's now Amadeus. It was TravelClick, turning around one of their divisions that was pulling down the rest of the company. And that was really, I was involved in working with the product team on redesigning the product and acquisition of another product. And then, just getting the sales team focused in the right direction and giving them that mantra so they knew how to do their job. And it was pretty much that group was a 32-person sales team. It was, for the most part, a bloodless transition. And, ideally, if you've got good people in place, give them the tools, give them the focal points they need to be successful, work with them in terms of coaching, and go. I usually come into businesses where, as far as the business, as far as the specific clients, they know that better than I do. I have an approach that will accelerate their growth, but they usually know their business best. So if you can keep people, that's ideal. Sometimes it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, you spend a lot of knowledge on these people, these layoffs. You wonder about how much people they're throwing away. And I've heard, they've had to hire people back sometimes. But no, this is good. So they can reach out to you. They can talk to you, handshake with you, find out if there are qualifications. Are you a fan of a lot of these, what do they call them, chat bots and stuff like this? I really find them aggravating. But maybe I'm just old world. Maybe I'm not the new kid on the block that understands all this stuff.
Yeah, I'm going through a situation right now with my Meta glasses that don't work right now.
Oh,
yeah, and
got those.
Chat bots have not been able to resolve it. It's
really.
I don't know. You probably have more patience than I do about these things, but remember the old phone trees when, press 1 to talk to Chris, and 2 to talk to Bob, and 3 to customer service. It's really it appears that the chatbots have some of that same logic, where I just wonder if somebody's sitting behind it and going, you know what? By the time they get through 5 minutes of this, they're going to be so frustrated that it'll never happen, right?
I'm pretty sure, GoDaddy, I love them. They've hosted us for 16 years, 18 years. And people always tell me they're really expensive, but they have bailed the Chris Voss show out of some shit. We've been hacked a couple times. And then one time we got hacked, and then we tried reinstalling the database, and then we screwed the database, which was almost, we almost lost a decade worth of stuff. And they've always bailed me out, sometimes for free. Maybe they just like me or something. But so I stick with them. But, the one thing about, what was my thing about GoDaddy? Oh, they have the same bloody music, on hold music, that they've had for 16 years.
GoDaddy is one I use too, and I know exactly.
You know the song.
Nails on the chalkboard, right?
Yeah, and they have it now too, where if you press 4, you can turn it off, but you have to do it fast because you can't turn it off after it starts. Sometimes I have to hang up and redial. But no, the chatbots make me mental because, I'm a pretty smart tech guy. And of course, the chatbots don't know that. And so a lot of stuff, I've already done the A/B testing and figure out what's wrong. And I'm always like, it's your software. And there seems to be this thing in customer service where it's blame the customer as much as you can until they won't relent. And then it's probably our fault. It's probably your internet. No, I checked the internet thing. I know how, and I get frustrated. I'm like, just give me a real world person to talk to. And then sometimes, you can't get somebody that's easy to communicate with, or worse, you get somebody that clearly is maybe new and they don't know what they're doing. And you're just like, dude, I need to talk to somebody up the ladder there, man. 'Cause you're killing me, Holmes. You're just reading we used to have a big 100-seater telemarketing unit with an auto dialer. So we know, we know all the prompts you're supposed to read and all that crap. Yeah. And so what are the things about the services and what you have to offer to people haven't we talked about that we should let people know so they can look you up?
Yeah, it's also, I go in and evaluate the sales teams. There's a lot of research out there that I don't believe there's an easy personality test that'll tell you if somebody's going to be successful or not. Some of the early studies I was involved in with different companies, and we've spent so much money with different companies figuring out who the best salespeople are. And I found one assessment tool that I use now, but we looked at things like introversion, extroversion. We did blood tests. We did
blood tests.
Oh yeah,
serious. Whoa, they went
deep. Type A positives.
What about urine and stool? Did you check that? I mean, we got to make sure we cover all the bases in case there's any unknowns here.
Yeah, we'll get it from every end, right?
Was that thing where Putin, he drives around and they have people that he has private poo facilities where they can keep his poo so no one can figure out his health from the spy countries?
That's so crazy. That's
what I do on Fridays around here on the Chris Voss Show. But I'm sorry to interject and cut you off there. You were telling us.
Yeah, it was. So what we actually found was introverts were slightly more successful because they would follow process more than an extrovert would. And I mean, that was one of the factors. It wasn't statistically significant. And the other thing is they'd ask a question, they'd be quiet. They'd let a client talk themselves into buying. So that's interesting. That's one of the things I discovered. I never, when I'm involved with the team, I do not have 8 slides of why you should do business with our company, because people buy for their own reasons. So I ask them why. It's, hey, you're involved in an important project. This is very important. So I would ask you, why would you choose our company? I can tell you all the reasons I believe you should. And if you don't have any, I haven't done a very good job setting the stage or setting the table, if you will. So that's what I found out in the Hewlett-Packard meeting is what happened was magic. And that the way the magic worked was, first of all, the people I was with, the CTO and COO of the little consulting group I was involved in, one of them was kicking me under the table because I'd gone off script. I shut the laptop and I said, look, this is really important to you.
Yeah.
You need to let us know why you'd choose our company or why you wouldn't choose our company. Yeah. And that's it. That really matters the most because it's a project that is hero or zero. You're going to be a star if this is successful. If it's not, it's, and I'd hate that because I'd done all the bonding stuff. I knew, the names of their cats and dogs and kids and birthdays and all of that. So I felt a great affinity for those people, and the 8 pages didn't matter. It just, it was very generative or on the spot. And to me, that was that moment when the lights really came on. And what happened was, here was the magic, is one of the people on the team said, I was concerned that it would, in this case, be functional with this other technology. Our CTO was sitting right there, and 2 months ago, we did the same thing for Toyota, and here's what happened. Oh, we didn't know you had that. So we had an objection that surfaced by asking them that question. And then what happened from there is it was a love fest because they weren't in psychology. If I was to push like this, you'd pull back. If I pulled back and my hands are like this, you're going to come towards me. So what that was a pulling back. You tell us why this is important, why you choose us. Yeah. After that, what could have been an objection or killed the opportunity is it became a love fest. They talked about how we were competing against PwC and Accenture, big consulting firms. And what they talked about was how nimble we were, how they knew they'd get more attention from us. They talked themselves into buying. So that was on a Thursday. It was a pretty big agreement. It was multi-million-dollar for a little consulting firm. It was big stuff. And the next Tuesday, we had an agreement.
Wow. And that's because you went off script, pretty much? Do I have that right?
I went off script, and it's now part of a methodology that I recommend and utilize, and it's in the book.
Yeah. To me, it's those human moments. And people know when you're reading the script and the pitch, and they're like, yeah, I've heard this from 50 freaking guys today. And it's that interaction. We were talking about how to identify great salespeople in the 90s. We just mostly looked for people that had high cocaine and Crown Royal addictions. And that was usually the tell. It's kind of like Glengarry Glen Ross. We just looked for the Al Pacinos that were always at the bars, and those guys were always hustlers. But no, I mean, it's just kind of, I don't know if it's still true, but back then it was kind of, it might be. But one thing I notice about top salespeople is they can amenable, or they can wrap themselves or envelope or gain rapport with just about anybody. And I learned a lot from them. It's probably how I use the show, because anybody can come on here and we can talk about anything, and I can rap. And sometimes they all have different things. You've got some business nonfiction stuff, and I understand the world of business and aspects of that. But then we're going to get, tomorrow I might have somebody who's a child novelist or novelist for children, writing children's books. And so I've got to wrap around, make what they do interesting, and integrate into that. And so that's what I would notice. I remember I was walking by one of my top salespeople one time, and he was like, I think he was like 28 or something. He was talking to a guy on the phone and about a mortgage, and he goes, yeah, I know, I'm about your age, 50, and yeah, I'm seeing the things of it. I looked at him like, you're not 50. What the hell? But he was gaining rapport with the guy. He was trying to say, hey, I have the same values, and I understand. Basically, he understood the person's outlook. We used to have this thing where, and I can't remember where I got it. I think I got it from the Sales Business or Nightingale Conan or something. But we tell everybody, don't say, how can I help you? Say, what are you trying to accomplish? And shut up and listen. And 9 times out of 10, if there was ever a problem that came to the CEO's office, my office, it was because the guy either didn't ask the question or he didn't listen. And people like that. They're like, this person's interested in what I want. He's not just like me, buy my shit, right? He's interested in what I want to accomplish. And so I love that concept of you going off the script.
Well, one of the best analogies I have, my godfather was a physician, and I used to clean his office when I was a kid, or when I was a younger kid. I'm still kind of a kid, so I'd go in, and a couple times he wanted me to see what that process was like of interviewing people. So he'd say, hey, can my godson come in? We're not going to talk about anything that dramatic or anything like that, but I learned what a doctor does, what a good doctor does in terms of diagnosis. And I find a lot of salespeople, let's say, Chris, that you blew out your knee, your MCL or whatever. You go to the doc and you're checked in and everything. What would you do if they take you back and they show you the MRI, the imaging equipment, their physical therapy room, before they ask you one question? It's like, fix my knee.
I don't care about your crap unless you're giving it to me.
Yeah, all I want is, can you fix my knee? What do we have to do? And so a lot of sales presentations, I've seen that. I was actually involved in one selling situation where the client was saying yes, and I was coaching that organization, and the salesperson felt compelled that they had to deliver the rest of the presentation. So it got to the point where the client got pissed off and said no.
Yeah. It really comes down to two. The people are buying you. You mentioned that people buy with emotion. It's really important. And in essence, people buy you. When we started my first multimillionaire company, and it was like my third or fourth or something, it was a courier company, and we had to have cars that would drive across, just local deliveries across the state of Utah. It was much like FedEx or UPS, only just local. And we were building it out from scratch, and we started the business doing medical stuff because my partner worked at the big medical company here, and so we had business, but we wanted to expand into something more profitable and white collar and wasn't an emergency. It could wait overnight. And so we sent out a mailer. The mortgage company responded. I went out and met with my first mortgage company, my suit and everything, and they had multiple offices. And this is important to get a beachhead set up and get our first client, and then we could go get the other clients. But we got Bob to work for us. You guys should too. And I remember the CEO, I went there with all my charm and my suave or whatever the hell you want to call it as a salesperson. I got to know the people and was telling them, he goes, let me get this straight. You started this business a few months ago. You don't have all the cars you need. You're using your own vehicles, but you're going to build this vision that you sold us. And I sold them on the vision of what we were building. And they said, why should we switch to you from someone who's, the company we're using now has been around forever? Why should we switch to you? And I'm like, number one, we're going to save you money. And number two, we're going to build a better machine, and we got better service, customer service. And really, when it came down to their final decision of going with us, they bought me. And I believe the CEO called me and he goes, I want you to know something. We're going to do this. And, that was the other thing I offered him. I said, you know what? I'll put it all on the line. You try us. You give us a month or 2 months. If you don't like it, it's all free. I put it all on the line. And they just went, holy shit, this guy, he's either, we're going to make out good if we switch, and we can just switch back. And I said, I promise you, you're going to love it. And I saved them some money. We saved them. It was so silly how I do things. We saved a quarter off of each package, and it saved, $1,000 by the end of the year. So we tell them it'll save you $1,000, and they're like, wow, that really stacks up. And, we saved them a quarter, but in the meantime, we double billed them every 2 weeks instead of once a month. So when it came to cash flow, it was like gold. But yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing about sales that I think a lot of people maybe forget now, especially, you see the pitches on LinkedIn. People buy the people behind it. And that's why I think the conversation that you've talked about and the interactions going off script, that's why it's so important, because it's a human moment, right?
You hit the nail on the head with AI. People that are freaked out and worried about AI replacing them. Mm-hmm. How do you build a business like you did on trust, or some of the revenue I've generated? A lot of the revenue I've generated is because of the trust I built with people. Yeah. Getting to know them, and they want to know somebody's there for them.
Mm-hmm. It's everything. And I think hopefully that'll never be replaced. I would hope that, if anything, and I saw someone talking about this on Tinder the other day about AI, that human interaction is going to become premium. What I could talk, because right now, if you go, hey Chris, do you want to talk to a chatbot about getting some answers on customer service, or whether you want to buy a product or not, or give me a human being, I'll pay premium for a human being. Yeah. I mean, charge me an extra $10 on top of your product to avoid. Do you want to talk to the stupid chatbot? Press 1. Do you want to talk to a real freaking human at a $10 extra premium charge we'll add to the product? I'll fucking do it.
Yeah.
I'm just there, man. I'm just there. I mean, I've been screaming and typing. I think we've all done it where we're screaming at the chatbot going, give me a freaking human. Give it now. So
close to home.
Yeah. And it's almost like it knows, and it's, oh, you don't like me. Let's make this painful. Anyway, so as we round out, give people a final pitch out to utilize your services, pick up your books, .coms, and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Check out the website. You can call or text. My number is on the website. And I believe in being of service to people, and I get enjoyment out of working with organizations to build businesses and get the right people in place. And I never overstay my welcome. And when it's time to go, it's time to go. But the key is to build repeatable, scalable processes for your business. If you could remember one thing, that's it. There's a few different ways to do it, a few different approaches, but I've got about 40 years of experience doing it, and I'm still learning. So I consider myself a mentor and also an intern when I come in your business, because I will learn the business. A good friend of mine coined the term mentern, which is where I see myself in the world.
Men turn, and what do women do? Do they turn too, or is there an opposite to that?
It depends.
I'm just doing jokes. It's men turn. Men. Maybe it's a directions thing on men, because we never ask for directions. We just drive around until we find it.
We do.
Maybe that's what it means.
Yes. Yeah.
And the wife's like, would you just pull over and ask somebody? Anyway.
No.
I'll find this. Anyway, thank you very much, James, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Very great show. Insightful.
This was a pleasure.
Thank you. And thanks so much for tuning in. Order up his book wherever fine books are sold. It's called Real World Sales Strategies, The Art of Selling Conversation. And please, folks, gain rapport with people, talk to people, just don't hit them with the pitch over the head if you can. I mean, some things are one thing and another. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss for your family, friends, and relatives. Facebook.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, and YouTube.com/Chris Voss. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.
All right, James, great job there.